Social Impact of Women in Early English Theatre by Jules Staley and Ruth Sprenger. In England during the 1600s, an absence of professional actresses in theatre reflected the existing rigid roles for women in society. On December 8, 1660, the first professional actress performed as Desdemona in Othello after King Charles II legalized the inclusion of actresses in stage productions. As women began to perform, communicating gender equality and creating outlets for women to communicate through writing, they took the first steps in the right direction, finding greater acceptance in English society outside of the home, yet they were still far from being viewed as equal.
Origins of Western traditional theater go back to around 532 BC. Putting their practice into tragic plays, these performances took place in ancient Greece and Rome. At the time, women were considered inferior to men, so they weren't seen on stage. This resulted in men playing female roles, including powerful women characters. Most women were not allowed to perform, and it stayed like that for a long while, until the 1600s hit.
After the Civil War, executions, and political turmoil, King Charles II, son of King Charles I, became King of England in 1660. The Civil War had resulted in the beheading of his father, and even the rule of a Republican government over the British. Eventually, Cromwell, leader of the Parliament, died, leaving Charles II to become the king. Charles II restored English monarchy, resulting in the Restoration period in the 1660s. Due to religious and political reasons, theater had been closed for 18 years. However, after bringing some of his personal tastes, influenced by the time he spent in France, King Charles II showed his liberalism by throwing out oppressive laws, opening up theater for women. Positive and negative reactions occurred from viewers, but inspiring women came up from this and became actresses, playwriters, theater managers, and more.
One of the main reasons women were not permitted to act was that people thought men could do it instead. Men dressed up as women and played their parts in performances, also known as cross-dressing, which is practiced over time, and even today. Acting was also considered indecent by many people, which was a great influence at the time as well. Acting was considered a low-class profession, though it did pay well. In some ways, being an actress was a fast way to climb the social ladder. A woman on stage didn't have to be high class. What she needed was the ability to read and write. But most roles required women to act of higher status with manners and etiquette, which was often difficult for lower-class women. Lastly, it introduced them to higher-class men, whom they could marry, obtaining wealth. A direct quote from an article by Writers Theatre says, "This medical tradition held that female humans were essentially incomplete or unfinished males, a phenomenon caused by a lack of heat that would have otherwise resulted in the formation of male genitalia. It followed that women were understood as being weaker, more prone to psychological and physical ailment, and in need of supervision, control, and at times restraint by the one true sex, men." They also used Christian reasoning to prove this point: women were unsuperior. Though there were contradicting statements in the Bible, the English decided in the idea that women were in need of leadership from men, resulting in their home life. This shows that women being viewed in theater was so different and such a big change to what some were used to.
On December 8, 1660, a 30-year-old actress, Margaret Hughes, stepped out onto the Vere Street Theatre, performing in Shakespeare's Othello as Desdemona, throwing out the old tradition of female parts being played by men, as well as making history for women to come generations later. Margaret Hughes was well known for her theatrics after falling into bed with Charles II, Charles Seeley, and other members of the court until she happily settled down with Prince Rupert himself, becoming a wealthy, happy family after having a daughter in 1673. She has been credited with being the first professional actress, though multiple sources point to that being possibly false. We know for certain the date and play, but the actress has left us with questions. The important thing is, however, that history was made December 8, 1660 in English theater.
After her husband's death, left with no money, Afra Ben became a political spy for King Charles. With increased expenses, Afra was thrown into debtor's prison due to the king's refusal to pay for her job, though she was released soon after for unknown reasons. To get back up, Ben started writing and worked as a copyist. Later, she wrote her first play, The Forced Marriage, produced in London 1670. This led onto the trail of more pieces with low and high ratings. Her works included things covering race, color, gender, comedy, and more. She then became one of the most wealthy female writers, with her writing 19 plays and 4 novels and short stories, her career ending with her death in 1689.
Copying other famous plays, burlesque theater turned well-known performances into humorous productions. Becoming popular in the 1830s, these types of performances became specialties. Having women wearing revealing clothing and speaking sexually suggestive dialogue, you can see how theater has digressed over the years and women in theater became more inappropriate. In the past, you can see the differences in plays with using men for playing women, but now having real women, you can notice how theater has changed. This is just an example of how women in theater has changed in different time periods and communicated different sides of women involvement.
The true importance of this all was that actresses communicated to other women that they also had potential. Uprising women who used theater as an outlet to show their talent became role models for other women, inspiring many to start making differences to their daily routine. You can see it communicated these ideas to other women because other women immediately started performing, writing plays, and more. The call for women in theater grew, for more wanted this new edition. Not only did it communicate to women then, but to women today. Women were also given an outlet to communicate messages through their plays, like Aphra Behn. We might feel oppressed in some situations, expected to act a certain way, but having this knowledge of the past and seeing the outcome of what happened when a woman did something for the first time might make us braver today to try new things.
Women chose to resist and persevere throughout all of the unfair representations, and it has brought us so far. Women have come a long way since Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet, but they are still disproportionately represented in theater. A quote from worksbywomen.com says, "It is estimated that women playwrights, directors, and designers represent only 20% of all theater professionals hired each year. Creative women face many other forms of oppression. The women of today's theater are actively working to change this." Even if they didn't know it, women such as Eliza Vestris, Margaret Hughes, and Aphra Behn made a huge impact on society back then, which led to our society today. Women were, and still are, just as capable at achieving greatness as men, and they proved that time and time again.
This was an explanation of the social impact of women in early English theater by Jules Staley and Ruth Sprenger. Thank you for your time.